All right. Looks like it is 5:30. I will call this Monday, June 21st, Broadband Authority meeting to order. If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence to follow. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence. Thank you. Next is the adoption of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I will adopt the agenda as it is presented on board docs and before us here.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, now we have minutes for adoption. I realized they didn't get posted until probably around 10:30 this morning, and I do apologize.
Madam Chair, I didn't get a chance to look at it.
I make a motion that we table the minutes and review them at our next regular monthly meeting of the Broadband Authority.
I have a motion.
For a second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Margaret, thank you for your efforts. Now we're moving into public comment period. If there's anyone that would wish to speak, if you'll please raise your hand, go up to the podium, let us know where you're from, and let us know what you're thinking. Yes, sir. You knew one of them.
That's okay.
Hey.
Rich Shoemaker, my Broadband, Jacksonville. Rich Shoemaker, my Broadband, Jackson District. I'm here haven't been to a lot of meetings or hardly any. Been working on a new program and plan, and I think it's very exciting. My technical advisor, Richard Pate, that you all have met, big tall guy, has a team of technical people that are rival anybody that's coming into the county. And he wants to invest in the Piedmont Broadband in a significant way. So he is buying into the company. I'm going to step down as the managing CEO. He's going to take over. I'm going to be in the wings as a consultant and come and be here as much as necessary. What we're talking about doing is putting in a significant sum of money. I don't have the exact number now, but it's over $100,000, probably well over that. And we're looking for help from the county or any source that we can get. We own the rights to some major hilltops right now. We want to deploy LTE so we can meet the 25.3 standard or whatever that is. Also, I read an article that was sent to me regarding All Points Broadband doing fiber, and I thought that was great. So I mentioned that to Rich, and he says, "Oh yeah, we can do that." So we have the ability. I mean, he's got the contractors and people that he knows he worked with. This is what he does for a living. So he's got the resources, the people, the support, and everything else for us to do that and do it economically. So we'll need some help with working with Rappahannock Electric or whatever else we got to do. But I think this is a major step. I mean, I've kind of taken Piedmont as far as I can take it. So we need smarter people that know what they're doing to come in, and they're going to invest a lot of money. So I don't think that they're going to come in and just be casual about it. So what we'd like to do is present you guys with a proposal sometime shortly or whatever we have to do. I think Margaret was mentioning some stuff. So I think it'll be very solid. I think we'll do it economically. We'll get customers at the lowest cost per customer, and you won't see us because that's the whole idea, to keep the view shed the way it's supposed to be as much as possible. And so that's our goal, and to be able to provide people 25/3 or more. And we need to upgrade equipment, which is no big deal, but costs money. And we need to build these towers with solar and other backup things, which is no big deal, but it costs money. But I think we can do it more economically than some of these other companies, because we don't have the overhead that they have. Of course, you don't know anything about overhead, do you? No, I didn't think so. So, and we can do things like the Sunnyside Farm thing. We may be able to locate something high up on Sunnyside Farm to really service that whole area. But we can't do it the way we have now, because we don't have the elevation, and we don't have the equipment, and we're not going to go way up the mountainside and put up $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 worth of equipment unless it's properly grounded and secured and we have rights to it. So, but that's what we're looking at doing, and I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's Rich gave me some astronomical numbers saying, man, we're going to be up to 12, 13, 1,400 customers by the end of 3 years or less. So I don't know if he'll get that goal, but that's the kind of ambition he has. And he's bringing his brother up, who is his partner, is also great at that kind of stuff. Plus, like I say, his technical team, he's got a half a dozen people down there that are just incredible. So I'm excited, and I hope that you guys are too.
Would I send the RFP when we get that finalized to you or to him?
You're going to send it to me and to him, but send it to me. I'll forward it off to him. He's actually got the people that can read and do this kind of stuff.
Yep.
Me, I get, I fill out a form for a credit card for Sears. I got problems. So. But these people know what they're doing, and that's the right group of guys to come in and take us to the next level.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mark Anderson from the Piedmont District. My focus the last 3 weeks has been on one thing, which is this economic development grant for broadband planning, which is a separate program that's going on parallel to the body program run by Department of Housing and Community Development. And what caught my eye about that program is it has its own line of funding, which is $700,000 initially for this fiscal year. And they've started putting out money effective mid-April. So we're 2 months behind that now. They're making allocations on a rolling basis, sort of like getting into college, where once you meet the test, the money goes out. I don't know how much money they have left, but it was my thought that would be a good thing to put together an application and get it in, which I started drafting on my own since everybody else here is kind of busy.
Thank you very much.
It isn't ready to show to you yet, but I'll try to have it ready as quickly as possible and get it on to you. Basically, they'll put up to $40,000 that can only be 50% of the total cost. What I envision, what Mark and I talked about a year and a half ago, was doing the broadband planning in 2 phases. The first phase would be sort of an assessment, which would include an effort at the mapping and identifying the different services and the need. And an important statistic is the distance between the middle mile or the broadband on the public roads and the house or home. That distance could be something on the order of 300 miles. If it's all fiber optic, you can figure out what that costs. If Piedmont Broadband and others can do a simple wireless transmission from the fiber optic on the road up to the house, that'll save considerable money. And in most cases, won't involve towers. So I think that's something we need to get the measurements on and know exactly what those numbers are, and that should be part of the initial assessment.
Okay.
The second phase, if this goes the way I'm thinking about, would be a deployment plan or an implementation plan wherein we know exactly what we need to provide. We try to identify an ISP or a WISP to make the provision, and then we map out a program by which we will do that and figure out what the funding will look like to do that. That could take a couple, 3 years. But we wouldn't do that till next year because we can only get 40,000 a year, maybe less than that. So if what I understood Mr. Curry to say was we can apply some of our ARP money to broadband planning, as long as we use the magic words, we're planning to 100/20 or 100/100, then we can make that expenditure. The county might have to come up with 10% of its own funds, say 7,500 on a $75,000 first year. So those are my thoughts. I was hoping to get it on the agenda this time, but it's not there, but that's okay. I'll try to get it together and get it out to everybody so that you can think about doing that. Now, I've been told don't ever use the word economic development in this county, which is sad because it's the economic development department of DHCD. And there's a lot of different sources of funds in there. They're all administered through an online system called CADS, which is, I think it's community assistance something, deployments or whatever. Anyway, we don't have an account as best I can tell. We, the Broadband Authority, don't have an account, and I don't think the county has an account either, which tells me we haven't been putting in for those funds. And some of those funds are pretty easy to get, as I understand it. So that might be something else to think about if we had somebody to help us with the staffing and putting those things together. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
I'm seeing that we do have some people on, is this Zoom still?
Yes.
Okay, on Zoom. If there's anyone that's on Zoom that wishes to speak during public comment, please raise your Zoom hand. Let us know. Not seeing any hands. Anybody else, public comment? All right, I'm closing public comment. Thank you. And we'll go into, really didn't have any informational presentations for tonight. So the next item is potential broadband funding methods. And I left this on the agenda just to remind us of the VADI timeline. Ms. Smith wanted to make sure that that was available to us at all times. There's a link on that page that says VADI program deadlines. Any other discussion on that agenda item? All right, community broadband mission vision. Ms. Smith was kind enough to work on this, and it's open for discussion to see. Obviously, it's different than the broadband committee, but that doesn't mean anything, I don't think. Ms. Smith, you want to walk us through what you did?
Well, this is just based on the Orange County vision statements that we reviewed at the last monthly meeting of the authority. We had reviewed them in pretty short order at the last meeting in May. So they had broken it down into vision, mission, and objective. And so I just kind of worked through it, but made it, I think, more appropriate to Rappahannock County by including wording about our scenic rural nature and but including the next generation technology that we're pursuing in part of this endeavor. And I'm open to changes or any sort of alteration of the language, but I just wanted to take a first stab at it.
Thanks a lot. I've got just a couple of small things.
Yes, sir.
I guess next generation, I mean, these are a couple are typographic, but under objective, I've got one substantive proposed change. I think next generation, we just hyphenate it, like next generation adjective form. And then the main change is under objective, and it might just be from Orange County. So it's just a matter of correcting it. Should be reducing capital / startup costs and ongoing operating expenses, because startup operating expenses is mixing ongoing operating expenses with startup costs. So it should, I think it should read reducing capital / startup costs and ongoing operating expenses would be more accurate. And I think that's really all I would have. And then I guess the last thing under objective, just with a choice, which sort of is at the end, just move it up, provide a choice, providers to provide a choice of next generation broadband services in unserved and underserved areas of our rural community, period. That's all I have. Thanks a lot, Christina. Looks good.
Sure. Yeah, that was language exactly as I had lifted it
Yeah, I
from
figured. Yeah.
Orange County. I didn't make any changes to those particular sections, and I think that's fine.
Okay.
Any concern with leaving it sort of broad, next generation broadband? You think we need more clarity there, or good enough leaving it open?
I mean, it's a broad statement. I think it's, in my opinion, it's fine.
Okay.
The way technology changes, I don't think we're going to get too specific.
All right, Margaret, were you able to get those? I know we're recording, so it's good.
They just submitted an article, very accurate from the recording, so.
Okay. Any other discussion, Mr. Parrish?
No.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion with the edits that we just heard?
Sure. I'll just make a motion that with the edits proposed by Mr. Whitson, that we adopt the vision, mission, and objective statements attached to the agenda this evening as official documents for the Broadband Authority.
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Parrish, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Smith and Mr. Whitson. Okay, going into treasurer BDA account. I had let Ms. Nick know that we were going to be discussing this today, but left it optional whether she wanted to be here for the meeting or not. In my mind, I'm just thinking there is going to be monies of some sort, and I think the goal is to keep them separate so that they're very trackable and reportable should we have funds that we're receiving from state or federal grants. Any other thoughts on that?
No, I think it's good to plan ahead. I think the other thing we need to think about is, and Mr. Anderson touched on this some too, you know, our staffing needs as this develops. I don't know how much we can live along with the staff that we have. And I don't mean that as a dig at staff. I just think that they already have what to do.
Yep.
And so what are our realistic expectations in terms of how we get things accomplished?
I do know we have some private citizens that are interested in helping should we need funds. I know that PATH is interested, but we have to have a plan before they want us to present our plan to them before they'll commit. But I know they're interested as well. So having a safe place for funding to allow us to do make some efforts happen, I think it makes good sense unless somebody else thinks differently. All right, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to start checking account.
Got a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, the part that will probably take a little bit longer. I asked Margaret if she would help walk us through kind of what she edited so that hopefully it's clearer if we go through it together. Everything is on board docs that we have at the moment, and sometime this afternoon I added this one item that's RCBA RFI with supplemental language from my neighbor, Randall Bartlett, who had some suggestions, and this is last minute. So Margaret has looked at it and she's got some feedback, but we can, take them or leave them kind of thing in the development of this document.
I'll try to be quick here, and I should also advise the Broadband Authority. I reached out to Lonnie Hamilton originally to see if he could help with providing the map that we have talked about, and it turns out really that his office isn't able to get a map of the detail that we're talking about, where all the ISPs are providing service and where the unserved areas are. But his bottom line to me was, don't worry about that the process of putting together the VAHI grant will start defining those served and unserved areas, and the ISP will help you figure that out, because they need to know that for purposes of their plan. He also said, after the body application is submitted, if you've been somewhat off base on where the served and unserved areas are, the challenge process, where ISPs can come in and challenge where you've designated to provide service, will also help define the areas of served and unserved places in the county. So that could be, it'd be an evolutionary process, but don't worry about the map quite so much now. He also, I asked about if we could look at what a network plan looks like. I realize I've never seen one, but it might be helpful for us to look at what some other county has done, so we kind of know what product we're aiming to try to put together ourselves. He said he actually didn't have one on hand to share with us, but might be able to come up with one that heavily redacted that would help us visualize where we're trying to go with this. He had some other comments too, and I'll be brief with them, and I'll maybe can just read them because I want to be accurate. He suggested that an ISP might struggle to identify every building in the county, that the kind of service provided and so forth. And they might be reluctant to engage in this kind of exercise just to share with an authority sensitive information, but not be able to publish it for public viewing. So it's basically saying you don't need to be quite so specific at this point. He also suggested that to give the ISP some wiggle room in how they want to conduct their broadband needs assessment. That's also included in the RFI, because not all of them want to do it the same way. He said it makes sense to ask an ISP to build their own partnerships, but they might be a little turned off if you suggested that they partner with somebody else, because those people, the other ISPs, are competitors. Now, that was somebody else's comments. That wasn't something which is a must do, but I wanted to share with you some of the things that he said. He also pointed out, and I think we will come to this point, that referencing the RSSI information that is included in the version of the RFI in front of you might be, it only was required for wireless providers, and it might be sensitive information, so we might not want to actually include that in the RFI. Although the reason I put it in for us to consider was that it was included in the webinar for the body applications. We will have to come up with some of that information, but we don't need it for the RFI now.
So where is this?
Actually, it's on the page 5, I think it is, that.
Proprietary information, that whole discussion.
Yeah, so it's in the number 1, the requested information. You have in front of you kind of a Christmas tree of colors. I'm very visually oriented, so I think it's helpful for me when I'm looking at for changes is to give it a different color. The red typeface is changes that were put in from the discussion at the last special meeting. And I got the link for the interim broadband committee report. It has some value. It's not tremendous value, but I included that as a link under the section that would have been where the map was referenced. So I kind of weasel worded around saying we're going to give you a definitive map of served and unserved areas. That's on page 3. The next section that has some, I think, really good suggestions on page 5, where Mr. Fraser actually said, can we get some pictures of what this technology looks like? If we're looking at towers, we kind of want to see what those towers look like. So it would give us a little more imagery of the major types of broadband equipment that the proposed plan would use. I thought that could be a very helpful idea. We could see how disguised were those towers, or how tall were they above the tree line, or things of that sort. In response to your suggestion about how to deal with integrating a response to the RFI into comprehensive plan. I referenced the comprehensive plan and included a link to it, as well as I just didn't want to leave the pertinent sections of the comp plan out from consideration by any ISP because they could gloss over or might not find it in the comp plan. It's a big document. So I thought leaving the actual wording of the wireless telecommunications plan and some of the key principles about the view shed would be worth keeping in the attachment 1. On that same page is a section in green, which Ms. Donahay's neighbor had suggested that an accountability question. How are you going to communicate with us? How are you going to keep track of the work that you're doing? How are you going to talk about scheduling and delivery of your products? And we kind of want a little more accountability there. That was his suggestion, so I included it in the mix of colors here for your consideration tonight. And we wrestled a little bit at the last special meeting about, do we want to put a scoring sheet? Do we want to rank order things? And it seemed to me that as Ms. Donahay's neighbor suggested, a scoring sheet's really more for an RFP, but you kind of want to help any ISP who wants to respond know what's most important to you. So I kind of went through and rank ordered what I thought would be the most important down to the least important information for consideration. And Mr. Bartlett also included the language that kind of, I thought it made it a lot more focused under requested information. Those ISPs which are most responsive to this RFI will enhance their prospects for being selected as a member of a public-private partnership to implement service funded by a body grant. Those were the major points of change from the last version of this RFI, which the authority board considered on Friday. I also might mention to you, I asked Lonnie Hamilton, and in his experience, he ever saw a county go from an RFI and the response that they got directly to a memorandum of agreement so that you kind of skip the RFP phase. He said he thinks that he has seen that, but wants to double check to see there's no requirement that you must do a competed offering. But if it's possible to, and if, depending on the kind of responses that you get from the RFI, you might say, well, hey, we can just jump to the memorandum of agreement. We have only 2 people or one ISP that responded, we've met all our competitive requirements and just jumped to a memorandum of agreement with all the details spelled out that we would want to have. It's just for your consideration. It's not something that you even need to talk about tonight. But those would be the major areas that I wanted to bring to your attention for consideration tonight. Anything can be aligned out. So I erred on the side of putting all the information in, line in, line out is easy enough to do if you just think something is unnecessary or want to rearrange it. Are there any questions before I sit down?
Thank you.
Margaret's been working hard.
Yeah, I have something for comment.
I'm fine with that.
As a provider, I would be reluctant to give out exact addresses or names of people or whatever of my clients. I would have to ask their permission to do that, but I think we could give you very general but reasonably accurate numbers of people in a particular area. And I also think that we could help identify the areas, because we know the county so well, of areas of the weakest and what it would take to get to those spots.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
I'm thinking this probably makes sense because of how important it is, and hopes that we're going to get it out tomorrow, if at all possible. If we just go page by page and see and talk through it like we did the comp plan.
Sure.
Or the other group did the comp plan, I should say. Anything on page 1 that's pretty standard, I think.
Could I, do you mind if I have quite a few edits, I can just quickly go
Sure.
through them, and then if everyone agrees, then I could just hand them off.
Okay. If everybody's okay with that, I think that makes sense.
And that way I don't have to keep interrupting. The first comment I would make is, I think we should state up front that all responses to the RFI should follow the items requested and enumerated in section 6 of the RFI. And to that end, I want to make sure, and when I read it, I was a little confused. I want to make sure that there are not embedded in the other sections requests that are not clearly enumerated in section 6. In other words, you take the whole thing and you get into, for example, section 2, county background, and it has in here, if 100/20 megabits per second, and I know the word is megabits, and I see that Mr. Thornton is online, so I hope he appreciates that he taught us. 120 megabits per second speeds are not immediately attainable in your proposed plan. Provide information on how the VATI 25/3 minimums will be attained. But yet I don't believe that if you go into section 6, that that's one of the 10 items to which they're responding. Maybe it is. But I think it's important to state up front, everything you're providing must cover everything that is in section 6. At the top, we should just set up the Rappahannock County Broadband Authority as RCBA or authority, because I think we're using those interchangeably throughout the document. We're on Eastern Daylight Time, so EST should be EDT. The paragraph at the bottom, I should note that we use the words offer, responder, and I think there was one other form of that word. We should just set it up front and say, if we're using them interchangeably, we should just applicant, responder, offer, whatever term we want to use, just state it up front so there's no confusion. I've got just some small typographic edits at the bottom that are not substantive, so I'll just skip those for now. Top of page 2. Again, this whole provider, offer, responder, what are we trying to say? What's the word? Bottom of the first paragraph, typically available commercial investments. I think we should say, and maybe it's a term of art, but I think we should say typically available commercial infrastructure. I don't know the word investments means anything in that context. Piedmont, I think, should be capitalized. Blue Ridge Mountains should be capitalized on page 2. A couple of typographic edits. And then substantively in the red section on page 3, that I think was added late, it's 100/100 megabits per second. I wonder if that should, it says these minimums can transition to 100, but yet above we say 100 to 20, and then eventually to 100 to 100. So I wonder if that should read, oh, I see. It starts at 100 to 20, and then it says VATI 25/3. So maybe that's correct. At 100 to 100. Okay.
It's supposed to be scalable to the 100.
Okay.
Yep.
And then another area just to check for consistency. In the next paragraph, we use the word unserved, but in other places we use underserved and unserved. And I wonder if we should always say underserved and unserved in combination in all instances. A couple other little edits. The word defensible survey in the second bullet point at the bottom. I didn't know what the word defensible means in this context. Could we just limit on the ground defensible survey? Bottom of page 3. Yeah.
2.
On the ground in quotes, defensible survey. I didn't really know what that meant.
I mean, we walk around on the ground and make sure the survey is right.
Okay, fair enough. All right, you're a lawyer, I'm not. And then section 4, I like the boldface underlining of the keywords in each sentence. So I'd suggest all the bullet points should adopt that style. Identify, develop, determine, lead. And then you have the key phrase in the last bullet point already underlined. Word sustainment, do we mean sustainability, which is under goals and objectives 4. learn the capabilities and requirements of the respondents. Again, respondents, responders, offerers, let's just get all that phrasing straight. With regard to construction, operation, maintenance, and sustainability, including technology updates, refreshes, I think it's just updates, high speed, one word or 2 words, we use both, just pick one. And then under goals and objectives, item number 9 says Rappahannock County Broadband Enterprise. I don't know if that was just an error, if it's
Oh, gotcha.
authority,
Yep.
that's under 9. And
Mine
again,
on page 4.
up front, just define our set up RCBA or authority, and then just use one or the other everywhere. I'm almost done. Roman numeral 6, the word information is misspelled at the top. And then again, broadband authority, just use the acronym, some small edits. I'm not gonna burden you with them. All typographic. And then page 6, item 9, I would say before the word offerer, just add the phrase, please note the offer must be prepared. Just make a complete sentence. And I don't know about capitalizing desired outcome. I know it was sort of a term of art used earlier in the draft, but I don't know. Capitalizing seems odd. And then submissions and timeline, all submissions, plural. It's the last sentence under the first paragraph in section 7.
And so you're saying we should.
Yeah, I'll give you this. I mean, don't worry too much about it. Yeah. No, I appreciate all your work on this. It's all pretty minor. And then if not so the next paragraph, if not hand delivered to the location on the cover page, submissions may be mailed with the phone instead of they. And then finally, under the disclaimer, just make the first 2 phrases 1 sentence. Be advised, this is not a purchase of goods or services. And then I would just, in the second line, I would just get rid of in such a way as. And then finally, in the very last line of that paragraph, again, any responder, offer, responder, respondent, just pick one. And that's all I have. And I appreciate your patience.
Thank you for your thorough review.
Yeah, and I think for me, when I read it, I was kind of intimidated, but I'm not an ISP. And so I think it is important that you just go, when you submit your response, please respond to everything in section 6, and then make sure nothing is somewhere else that
We could have
isn't.
left
To
out.
me, that's the key point.
Okay.
So that's very clear for somebody. Then they can submit a response that goes item 1, item 2, item 3, whatever.
Perhaps you're adding the language, requested information, making it clear this is all you're asking for.
Yeah, everything, in my opinion, everything else should be background. And then you get to section 6 and it says, hey, this is what you should answer. And that way somebody, a busy person, can just focus on what they actually have to provide us, and it's all in there and nothing is missed.
Did you think that there were inconsistencies between section 3 and section 6?
I just didn't know, well, it's not really inconsistency, it's just I'm not a technical person, but there was this paragraph I mentioned just as an example, and if it's already in 6 somewhere and I missed it, that's on me, but I just want to make sure, like, in particular on page 3, it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on where it's asking for the respondent to assure us of certain things. And I just want to make sure that whatever is in here as a background sort of review of what we're seeking and what we need at a minimum is definitely here, so that they can just go to one place and respond affirmatively to the request.
Well, I think the one thing that you called out was the upload and download speeds. And that's right under the first item on requested information. Technology proposed to deliver
Oh, okay.
universal broadband is defined herein, including projected range of maximum and minimum download speeds, upload speeds, ping and RSSI and BDM.
Yeah, so I guess the reason I didn't note that that included the stuff from page 3 is because page 3 is pretty darn specific. And then number 1 under section 6 kind of backs off a little bit from the specifics. So that's all, but that's fine. Again, I'm not a technical person, so.
No, I wanted to know if there was something in particular that wasn't consistent, and I'll double check it myself too.
Yeah, that was the one that jumped out at me, and then just making sure that in all of this language on page 3 in particular, I guess, yeah, it's under section 3, that there's nothing there that doesn't show up in section 6 already in some form. I'm not smart enough to be able to figure that out, so I'll leave it to the experts. Yeah, somebody should be able to just look at section 6 and know what they need to provide us.
Yep. My big question, and this was after the meeting we had, the brief meeting we had on Friday, is this an RFI where we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna come back to you for an RFP? Or did we decide that we're going to make this the only document we're going to send out, whatever we call it? So all this information is requested, because I think, I don't know, Rich, you might be able to tell me, but if I'm somebody going to reply to an RFI, I know I'm only going to give so much information. The RFP has to be my big sales pitch on this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm going to take more time to give you all this information. I don't know if this is too daunting to call it an RFI.
I think that you might be surprised at the amount of information that we're going to give you in your information request. And that may be sufficient for you to make some decisions based on that.
Okay.
I'm going to tell Rich to make sure he is very specific as much as possible. The technology we're going to use, what we think we can expect to get with that.
Yep.
And then when we get to the 100 down and the 100 up, then we're going to let you know what has to be done for that, so that you not going to be misled by somebody saying they come in and do this with that. We know that you can't. So that helps.
I just don't want to scare any potential ISPs out there, because we may get some good information that we can use.
Well, one thing you need to be aware of is you're going to have to pick one, maybe two, because then all of a sudden, if you start to use similar type of equipment, you're going to have frequency interference, and the whole thing's going to fall apart. So you got to be wise in how you do that.
Thank you for letting us know.
Well done.
This RFI said there would be a non-disclosure agreement at the request of the offerer, or that's you. Would you give different information than if there was not a non-disclosure agreement? In other words, you're not giving away any proprietary information that you're concerned about your competitors seeing.
My competitors are basically using the same technology, so it won't be a great surprise, but I think we'd like to keep it as discreet as possible.
Because we can stick that
Yeah.
Well, we've got the language in there already, that they have to, if they have anything that they feel is proprietary, they need to let us know.
Yeah. So you could even, yeah, we were talking about that, and they could even just have it just says, if you wish to protect certain information, please state up front that you're filing your response with a request for proprietary treatment of business confidential information. And then, I mean, typically someone could place in square brackets or anything that they wish to protect as business proprietary information. And then, you know, that could be pick photographs or whatever technical information. I mean, we just say how to do it.
It just says that they need to identify and that we will not disclose it.
And that's under the Randall Bartlett language.
So that's under 6. It's been in the last 2 or 3 versions of this.
Basically, if somebody feels like make a stronger case or put in a stronger application by including proprietary information, then we owe it to them to protect that information. But clearly we can't accept a fully proprietary document that would be fully redacted from a public review standpoint.
Right.
So we would have to just specify it. I mean, I'd be happy to come up with some language, but it just says, it would say something like, you should state up front that you're seeking proprietary treatment of certain information, and any of that information must be identified with whatever. We can come up with a mechanism. And we might even have to request that they provide a public version for the public files.
So you might want to add something to.
Yeah, I could give you something quickly. I mean, it's,
You don't think what we have is sufficient?
I think it almost is, but if you, now that, I mean, with Rich's input and just thinking about it, I would hate to like not get the full picture from somebody because we weren't clear that, I mean, it says we won't disclose their information, but it doesn't really say how they're gonna file. Yeah, go ahead.
The type of equipment, the pictures, things like that, how you intend to do your backhaul and all that stuff, I think is okay stuff. The locations, I think you could be general with where you're gonna set up.
Sure.
Accounting information and things like that, if you're looking at the company being a solid company, and, you know, properly founded foundation with a business and experience, that type of thing, then that's starting to get into it.
Right, it's like your gross annual revenue. Or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, what's your, you know, how much you spend on your payroll, how much you do this. That's the kind of information I think you could probably, when you start to narrow your field down, maybe you can request some of that information.
Okay, so then maybe it's too early to even be asking for non-public information.
I think that you should consider general information, what kind of towers, what kind of equipment, pictures, that type of thing. You know, how you're gonna do your backhaul, or you're gonna use fiber connections, and we obviously want to use as many as we can. So that's the foundation of what you're looking for. And if you want to get more specific into more intimate company information, so that you know that the CEOs are going to be available to help you out, and their staff is going to be here and to do the stuff that they say they're going to do, then those are kinds of things maybe you ask for a little later.
I like the language that's already in there, and maybe it's just give people the option at least if they don't. I mean, it's pretty clear we're seeking general information, but if somebody feels compelled to include something, at least tell them how to protect it and how to identify it. I think Mr. Brader, that's the only thing I see is missing, is like a clear 1 or 2 sentence instruction. Because otherwise we could get something from somebody, it's a mixed bag of public and proprietary information. We don't know what to do with it.
And you're willing to write something up?
Yeah.
For Margaret? Okay.
Yeah, I can write it right now with you guys.
That would be great. Any other feedback on what we have in front of us? No? If I wrote my notes down, we had said that we're going to try to get this sent out tomorrow. Margaret, I can help you tomorrow afternoon, later in the day. And if we don't get it tomorrow, it'll go out first thing Wednesday. I have a couple of contacts that I'm still trying to find. But at this point, we have All Points Broadband, CenturyLink / Lumen, same company, Comcast, DataStream, Firefly, Madison Gigabit, Piedmont Broadband, River Street, and Chantel, and Virginia Broadband. Here's the list. If I'm missing anyone, please let me know.
Verizon.
Verizon.
Can you do that again? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. All Points Broadband, CenturyLink, Comcast, they're in alphabetical order, DataStream, Firefly, Madison Gigabit, Piedmont Broadband, River Street, Chantel, Virginia Broadband, and I'll add Verizon.
What about Rappahannock Electric as well?
They're doing the fiber, they're not doing the ISP part.
No, but I just thought that it might be convenient for us to get on their radar.
I'll be happy to share it with them. I think the agreements that they're doing right now are an ISP actually goes to them and says, can I have some of your dark fiber? And they make an agreement and pay for easements and off they go.
I just thought it would be like an FYI.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
Then we're gonna be posted on some sort of website, I guess.
I know Mr. Curry had said something about whether we could, is it something that we can put on the county website?
You can definitely go to the county website. Mr. Fraser mentioned EVA before, although I would be very reluctant to do that.
But what's the
Be
problem?
overwhelmed with chaff if you do that.
Right. We did get, Todd Summers had Rappahannock Broadband or something website that we do have, but I don't know. I think our county website would probably get more attention, don't you?
We won't get any attention, but you're gonna
Make it available.
blast it out to as many people as you can.
That seems to be what other counties do.
You don't think EVA would be a good idea?
I personally don't, but we can do it.
It's not gonna hurt, I don't think.
What is it, EVA? What'd you say, Ron? EVA, it's a state bidding list, E, Virginia Commerce, and the short acronym is EVA. There's all kinds of work on there, but I think that we would use it more often than not.
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
Would you consider adding fiber link to Orange County for profit? ISP?
I think they are just doing orange, but I can add it. What's the name again?
I think it's called Fiber Link, LYNC. Aren't they the ones that provided the mission statement language?
Probably, yeah, it looks like.
It says Orange County Broadband Authority, and then it says Fiber Link.
Yeah, I think they own theirs, so, because they pulled their own fiber, but I will check. Mr. Yao gave me, an email address for Firefly, so I can go back. Oh, that's Madison, not Orange. Anybody else?
I just wrote this real quickly, just so you know. I would say that at somewhere at the top of the RFI, we say, if you include in your response any business proprietary information, please, number one, state clearly on the cover page of your response that, quote, this response contains business proprietary information, unquote. Number two, in your cover letter, please identify the page numbers on which business proprietary information appears. And three, enclose in brackets, quote, square bracket, all business proprietary information contained in your response. And that way they've got clear guidance, and then we don't run into a problem with disclosing something we shouldn't.
We recommend then taking out the last sentence of paragraph 1, because it's really redundant.
Sure. Of where are
I'm
you?
sorry, page 5,
Oh,
requested information, paragraph 1.
yeah,
Take that out and add your language.
something like that, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, or just make it a new paragraph. And then I suppose, I don't want to scare people away, and if it's too much, you can skip it. If my colleagues would rather skip it, but you could say, and for, provide with your response a public version in which all business proprietary information has been redacted. And I think that's right for county taxpayers to be able to see what's out there. And I don't think we could get a proprietary response and then never have a public version, so.
Any other edits, additions? The timeline I had from the meeting the other day was send out tomorrow or Wednesday, and return is requested to be by July 8th. so that we can have a special session the week of July 14th. I think it is July 14th at 6 o'clock. Sure that's correct.
Yep, it's Bastille Day.
Yep.
That's right.
That's right. All right, can I have a motion to move forward with the RFI, given the edits that Margaret has taken down today?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Do I have a second? Thank you. The motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Margaret, I think the broadband committee will be happy to see the movement going forward.
So I think almost all of these are tiny little ones that they're like.
So we are agreed that it's gonna be July 8th that we'll be meeting again, or, I mean,
14th.
That's already,
Feel free, we can talk tomorrow or something. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be better. Yeah.
we can already advertise that as the date. July 14th, what?
July 14th, 6 o'clock here.
6 o'clock, that's Wednesday,
Special session.
and that's broadband. Right?
Yes, it'll be we'll have the RFIs returned on the 8th. I don't know, is the best process to disseminate the return copies to? What would be the best for?
Are you asking for multiple copies, hard copies? I didn't see that.
Yep. That's a good question. Would you all want a hard copy, or I guess we could scan it in, might be a.
Well, we've asked for a PDF copy. In
True.
addition to a hard copy.
Okay, that's what I'll do. Let's ask Margaret for a PDF copy so that it's easy to disseminate to the authority, and then everybody has like a week to take a look at it before we come in on the 14th. Yes, sir.
Will you all acknowledge the receipt of the RFIs
Yes.
so that we know you got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Some of these RFIs require original 7-paper copies. Which I think would save the county a lot of copy charges. If somebody submits a 150-page packet.
I think digital probably makes more sense for everybody, them and us.
They're gonna come in digital as well.
I don't know that we need a bunch of hard copies. What does the authority think on that?
If they can furnish us 2 or 3 with the electronic version, it'd probably be sufficient.
Would you want a hard copy?
So the hard copy of a bunch of proposals or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So every RFI that we receive,
Right.
would you want a copy personally?
It would, I think I could do better with that.
Okay.
I think it would be helpful, especially to have a robust response.
Well, why don't we just ask for 5? Or 6?
Should be 6.
6.
You should have
And
at least one that is not going to get destroyed for your file.
7.
7.
That's what it's like.
And a PDF.
I've had to do it before.
It's gonna keep the paper industry in business, which is great.
All right, we're at the open board discussion.
We've covered quite a bit.
Well, we're seeking internet, and I just got a message that people's phone lines are down in Arizona, so I don't know.
Oh dear.
It's unbelievable.
Storm.
I think we're making phenomenal progress here, and I would like to mention that in the public comment a few meetings ago in the past, people got up and criticized the original broadband authority for not doing anything, or not making any progress. But the truth of the matter is, they got to a certain point where they needed to, it was obvious that the county needed to become a partner and put up some money, and the county wasn't willing to do that. And that shut that broadband authority down committee right away. So that was unfair criticism, I believe. But I will say, we seem to be, I don't get any credit for it, working well together and making pretty fast progress.
I just wonder, Right, and I know this sort of runs contrary, seems to maybe on the surface run contrary to what we've done tonight, but I don't think it does. I think it's a companion piece of the approach we're already taking. A lot of times when I talk to people, they say, oh, why aren't we drilling into Starlink? Why aren't we trying to port Starlink, or why aren't we looking to make Starlink part of the solution? Because, you know, first to offer choices, shouldn't satellite be part of that choice? And I think it's really odd and probably in many ways contrary to the way this county functions, that we would allow the state to tell us that folks that have satellite service are not served because they're not counted in some of the numbers that on the body and ARP work that we're undertaking. So, so does it make sense to try to launch an avenue of communication with Starlink and see if we can take an approach similar to other counties?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I totally forgot.
Wise County?
Wise County, I had tried to reach out to Mr. Kennedy like 2 weeks ago and didn't get a reply. But Rachel from the news was able to get a hold of him, and she shared his phone number with me.
Okay.
So I did send a note to him and to Dr. Bolt, because so much of it, what he did was for the school system. So we are going to have a call, it's the 12th, I believe, with Mr. Kennedy, somebody else that's in his sphere of influence, and Dr. Bolt, so that the school system can at least talk to them about trying to get the same deal that Wise County did or more. And that's a link, as far as I'm concerned, if we can get that going for the schools, then you can go out to the other citizens that want it. Because there will be people that satellite makes the most sense.
Yeah, and I totally agree with Ms. Smith. I mean, I was shocked. Well, not shocked. I guess I was not surprised, but still shocked when the Chantel rep just kind of said, so we're going to put up all these cell towers or serve 800 households. And yeah, there's this thing called Starlink, but whatever, it's not, we don't
Right.
consider it serious. And to me, it was so obvious why they're glossing over it, because it's a threat. And so we should be opportunistic and seize upon whatever technology we can get our hands on that gives the most internet service to the most people.
Right. And, you know, a lot of the approach, and we're supposed to be technology neutral, but then we discount satellite right off the bat.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think if you have an avenue of communication to undertake, I think that's great. I think if we can ask for support from our other elected officials, our state senator and delegate, and maybe figure out a way forward to get some footing with that approach, that would be also helpful.
Yeah.
It's actually contrary to what the governor said back in December, where he said, you know, they wanted localities to be creative.
Yeah.
And finding ways to bring internet to their communities.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody over the weekend who has satellite service. He's delighted with it. And I said, well, you know, under a lot of these guidelines, you'd be counted as not having service.
Right.
Because it's a satellite delivery. He said, that's crazy. I said, yeah, I know. So, I mean, we pride ourselves on being different. So I think it warrants looking at a different approach also.
Yeah.
Yep.
Madam Chair, is that call you referenced, is that going to be like just a conference call or like a Zoom meeting?
It's going to, I need to set it up, but I'm intending for it to be a Zoom meeting.
That would be great. We could all kind of at least listen in.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about CenturyLink is, I mean, I've talked to people like you have, and so I had one person showing up there. They had taken a screenshot on St. Patrick's Day of 300 megabits per second download, and it was I don't remember clearly, but it was a cloudy, rainy day. And then I talked to someone else who's actually one of my constituents down on Struthers Lane off of Tiger Valley, and his wife has had difficulty staying on Zoom calls because they're still having, in this beta period, despite promised low latency, they're still having problems with latency. So she's constantly getting bumped off the calls. And I will say that doesn't happen to me with people on broadband. So most of the time.
I got bumped off of that Commonwealth Connect meeting. And it didn't have anything to do with my internet. It was something on their end because I had everything else, but I lost connection to the meeting. And somebody else complained, not complained, but one of the presenters, when I got the download and went back and listened to it, this is like 52 minutes long. He apologized that he had audio only and he was no longer able to use video while he was making his presentation.
Right.
So it was something clearly out there somewhere else. It wasn't in Amosville.
And I do think the reason the state hasn't accepted Starlink yet is it still is in beta. And there are people on all sides of the fence, whether when they have millions of people on Starlink, whether it's really going to work well, or if you're going to have problems, and we're not going to know until it happens. So it may make sense to leave people that are in Starlink world as a underserved until we've proven that that works, so they're not left out.
But I know folks that also have Dish network service or Exceed, and they're very happy with their services.
Really?
Yes.
Madam Chair, Mr.
Oh, yes, sir.
There, with the number of people that are home and using the internet, sometimes the servers on the other end get overloaded. So therefore, you're going to get dropped. And you think it's your ISP provider, but I know several that have got 100 megabytes up and down, and you know, and even more than that, it drops. And it's because the other end gets overloaded. Their servers haven't been upgraded because of the COVID thing. Everybody's doing their stuff, so they haven't upgraded their equipment. I'm sure they are now, but it's not always your ISP that's the problem.
One other item that I just want to include whenever we have a Starlink discussion, as Mr. Goshorn had mentioned, I believe during one of our meetings, the opportunity for download or downlink sites. I'm not sure the exact terminology, but if we can, position the county to where we have one of those in the county, it might really be helpful for us and also be a potential source of revenue, especially if it could be located on one of like our volunteer service locations.
Right. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn the Broadband Authority meeting.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Moving right along.